way to eat them out of a mug. Time for another autism-related Am I the Asshole? If you don't know, this is a subreddit where people post about something they did and everyone around them saying, you're bad. And they're like, I'm gonna take to Reddit for some reason and have Reddit decide for me because that sounds like a good idea. Sarcasm. Okay, the first one we've got here today is Am I the Asshole for calling my friend out for diagnosing herself with autism? First of all, I'm going to say before I read the whole post, a lot of autistic people like to say they were diagnosed as autistic. It is who you are. It is not something that you carry around separate to you. But let's see what's going on here exactly. Sounding a little bit suspicious at the moment that you may in fact be the asshole, but let's reserve judgment. So I got this friend I met through my roommate, who I've known for almost 2 years now. Ever since I've known her, she's been going around telling people she's autistic, and it bothers the shit out of me. Already the fact that this is someone who's supposed to be your friend, and you're coming on Reddit to bitch about something about her that bothers the shit out of you. This language is already setting off some alarm bells. Her reasoning is that she took an online quiz that she found through a TikTok. I want to do it! And that her autistic friend that said that she might be autistic. Apparently this is enough to support a full diagnosis. Okay, so I just want to say we're only hearing one side of the story here. I don't know if that is really the case. How do you know that she's not been hyperfixating and researching for hours and hours every night and reading loads and loads of information from loads of reputable sources? We tend to go hard on researching things. If she is autistic, there's a high chance she's got spreadsheets, you know? She's got spreadsheets, she's got folders, she's been interviewing many family members, you know, there is a chance it's been a whole process. Even to the point she told my roommate that he's probably autistic too. In brackets, he's definitely not. Do you know that though? But I'll come back to that in a minute, like diagnosing other people. Peer diagnosis. To her credit, she is a very blunt person who can be considered rude to people, and she's generally hard to read. I have no clue if that makes her autistic or not, but this is how she justifies that. Ooh, are we getting into the territory of I don't want to let you have an excuse, I just want to see you as a bad person, so I don't want to let you be autistic. I'd introduce her to some of my friends and she would eventually tell them that she's autistic and they just go with it. Nobody has ever called her out on it. So the other day we went out bowling and I was pretty drunk. Brackets great drink specials at the bowling alley. Bowling alleys are always so expensive. Not that I've ever drank alcohol. I feel like it's dangerous enough for me to have a bowling ball in my hand. My husband keeps making me go to bowling. I'm always last, without fail. I try my best, but then it goes badly, so then I kind of give up. And when she told a friend of mine that she's autistic, I kind of laughed a little. She then started to pry about why I laughed. Oh no. And we got into a full-blown argument. Oh, this is not a time, I don't think while you're drunk is the time to be talking about this. We got into a full-blown argument about how I think her self-diagnosis is BS. She pretty much summed my argument up to thinking that she's using the autism diagnosis to justify her rudeness to people, when in reality she's just a really hot girl from Venice Beach who hasn't had to learn proper manners, which is more or less how I feel. She's been pissed at me ever since. My friends find it funny though. Find what funny? This doesn't seem like a great friendship group. I don't know if I want to be a part of it. Honestly, outside of that, she's a cool person that I like to hang out with. For all I know, she's right and she really is autistic, which I never said was completely impossible. I just think that she should get a formal diagnosis before she goes around telling people that. I think it's generally kind of fucked up to pretend you're autistic and make people who actually have the condition look bad. I also understand that there's a better way of putting that out than bottling it up and then laughing at her while I'm drunk, but I tried to be reasonable up until then. So Reddit, am I the asshole? I think I'm gonna say yes. I'm really scared to read these comments. As you know, there is a history of Reddit commenters not being entirely nice.
Really, you can wait your ass in line. Anything over that is entitled.
Oh my gosh, everyone's kicking off. This is crazy. I haven't watched that one. I'll leave it linked. I'm nervous. I'm nervous for the comments on this one. I think you are the asshole here. I don't like the whole thing of like she's just a hot girl from Venice Beach who hasn't learned proper manners. Somebody can be autistic and, you know, not look nerdy. They can look attractive. There is no set way that an autistic person looks or dresses or even behaves. We're all so different. You know, it could very well be that she's gone home and she's done loads of research. She's had a very deep conversation with another friend who is autistic and they found all these ways that they connect, and she's like, this explains my life. And she's had maybe bad interactions with people in the past where people have assumed she's being rude when she wasn't trying to be, and she's like, oh, I can finally explain myself to people. People will finally be able to understand me better if I introduce myself as autistic. And a lot of people who are autistic, who find out that they're likely autistic through being in communities online and finding people all over the world who relate to these like weirdly specific things about you. It's exciting. A lot of people really want to share it. I only shared like my kind of suspicions that I was autistic with a few people in my life, but some people want to share it with every person we meet. That's kind of an autistic thing. Often we kind of hyperfixate on autism. Maybe the fact that she did the quiz was just one tiny thing that she'd done that she was telling you about. And when we get really into something, we tend to want to tell everyone about it and kind of monologue about it. I don't know this person. Maybe she is just using it as an excuse. Maybe she just thinks it's kind of funny. Maybe she just thinks it makes her seem kind of quirky and different, but you don't know either. She has only been your friend for 2 years and people can mask very effectively. You don't know what it's like to be in someone else's head. You don't know everything about someone else's life experience, and you probably don't know very much about autism. I haven't read any examples of like bad behavior that she's particularly done, other than you say that she can be blunt sometimes and that can be perceived as rude, but you even called it blunt and said it can be perceived as being rude. To be honest, it sounds a little bit like what a lot of people do when they hear someone say that they're autistic, that you immediately don't believe them because it doesn't fit the stereotype. You know, they're not walking around in a Thomas the Tank Engine t-shirt. You're like, this doesn't fit the image I had. You're a conventionally attractive woman. You're not Sheldon Cooper, and you can't maybe reconcile these two images you have in your head, so you immediately doubt somebody. I don't see any evidence that she's definitely not autistic, so I would be inclined to believe somebody because I feel like that's the least harmful approach to take. What's the worst thing that can happen with somebody thinking that they're autistic when they're not? Versus me like laughing at somebody who actually is autistic for saying that they're autistic. I feel like that's the much worse outcome. I mean, at the end of the day, it's her business whether or not she decides to go and get a formal diagnosis. There are many reasons why people don't. People might not be able to afford it. And you know, there are sometimes consequences. Like, as I've said before, it can make it more difficult for you to emigrate to a different country. There may be implications depending on what career you want to go into. It's there on your medical record forever. And there are reasons why people have anxiety around that, particularly because people tend to have quite a negative or quite stereotypical view of what an autistic person is. She may not even feel like she needs to. She may feel that she's found people online who are really similar to her, and it's helped her kind of understand and accept herself, and that is all she needs. She just needs to know in herself. Without an official diagnosis, she won't be able to get accommodations. She's not going to get free passes in life. She's not going to get a disability benefit. She's not going to get anything tangible through self-diagnosis other than potentially understanding herself. She may very well have just seen a few TikToks and gone, I'm autistic, but the fact she's telling so many people that she meets makes it seem like she believes there's something there, and it may be really helpful for her to get the validation of an official diagnosis, and maybe it would help for her friends like you to understand better, and that certainly was the case. I thought friends and family wouldn't really be that bothered about, you know, me being officially diagnosed, but I think it did make several people actually finally kind of take it seriously once I had that. That's not to make anybody feel less if they don't, and if they're in a place on a waiting list right now and whatever. It doesn't physically change anything. I'm still the same person, and I think they still accepted it to some degree beforehand, but the professional stamp of approval does mean something, and maybe she will want to get that, and maybe she will want to have supports in her life. I think the biggest danger with self-diagnosis, and I want to make a whole video and talk about this in more depth because, you know, this is just kind of a fun one, but it could potentially be dangerous if you have a mental health condition and therefore you're maybe seeing things through a slightly distorted lens, or you decide that you're autistic and then you also have comorbid mental health difficulties, or just you're autistic and you really need support because you're in a really bad place, but you just think to yourself, I'm autistic, it doesn't matter, I can't do anything to change this, there's not really any medication I can take or anything, so it doesn't matter, I don't need to seek any help, and you just self-diagnose and just leave it there and then carry on struggling throughout life. In that situation, yeah, you need to get an official diagnosis, particularly if you feel like you're in danger of hurting yourself or others. Yeah, definitely 100%. But self-diagnosis, to me, other than that, I can't really actually see any harm in it. On the other side, you don't ask people to get diagnosed to be neurotypical. You don't owe anybody an official diagnosis in order to exist and take up space in the world. The fact she has an autistic friend who has said that she could be autistic, I mean, autistic people, we can be quite good at recognizing that other people are autistic. But then she's gone on to say another person is autistic as well, so there's a lot of layers of peer diagnosis. I do think when you first get diagnosed, you start seeing autism everywhere, and sometimes you can be wrong if you don't know somebody's internal world. I think often we're right. We recognize people who are similar to us, but sometimes you recognize that somebody's neurodivergent or has had a bit of a similar life experience in some ways to you, but you don't necessarily know what exactly it is. It would be nice if we got to a place where it wasn't kind of offensive, I think, to tell other people like, oh, is there any chance you could be autistic? Throwing it around at everyone you meet doesn't really necessarily sound ideal. I don't know, what do people think about that and the whole like peer diagnosis thing? I feel very nervous powerless to say it to anybody else. Even family members who like almost certainly you're like a bloody copy of me, like, you know, and we're related, so there's pretty high odds, but like it just feels uncomfortable because it is quite a personal journey you have to go on, and because of the stereotypes we have of autism, when someone says that to you out of the blue, I think it could just make you shut down and like turn away from it. I don't know, but then at the same time I'm like, if it isn't a dirty word to say that someone's autistic, why can't you just suggest it? But I don't know if everybody wants to be scrutinized and diagnosed by everybody in their lives all the time. Sometimes that might feel a little bit like overstepping a boundary. Let's see what the comments have said anyway. I feel like I've waffled on. I do think you're the asshole though. I think you could have a calm conversation with your friend and maybe try and take an interest and find out more about why she thinks she's autistic and maybe understand from her point of view. Everybody sucks, here's the first comment. People who self-diagnose and use it as an excuse to treat people poorly as opposed to using it to better understand yourself or seek better treatment are exhausting and toxic. But getting drunk and calling out in public was an asshole move. I don't really have evidence of her treating people poorly other than her trying to explain her bluntness by saying I'm autistic. Now, if you're aware that what you're saying is kind of mean, but you're just like, I'm autistic, this is a thing that autistic people do, even if you really are autistic, like, no, that's not very nice. You should still take into account other people's feelings. But if it's literally an accident, you just are literally saying what's on your mind, and I can do it, I can come across as rude and critical. It does help people in my life to know, oh, she's saying these things because she's autistic. Maybe my communication style is a little bit different. Yeah, I understand using it as an excuse to treat people poorly are exhausting and toxic. I think I can imagine that happening. I mean, you could do that with an official diagnosis. That's not an exclusive thing to self-diagnosis. In fact, that could be even more likely to happen if somebody had an official diagnosis and had this external validation, and then they were like, whoa, I'm autistic now, I can do whatever I want and blame it all on being autistic. But sometimes people also really are autistic and they really do things that they can't help or that they couldn't help in the moment. I think you've got to continue to try and improve yourself, which I think many autistic people do. But then also, this is why a diagnosis is a thing. It's helpful for other people to be able to understand why you might do the things that you do and to maybe show you a little bit of grace. And I just think it's like a give and take kind of situation. Somebody said also barriers to accessing diagnosis and treatment can be quite high, especially for adults. Okay, it's nice that somebody's saying that on here. So if your friend finds that gave her a better understanding of herself and behavior, more power to her, but she sucks for being a jerk. What evidence did we get of her being a jerk? If you are just using it to, like, I don't know, be mean to people, like, oh, your hair's ugly today, sorry, I'm just autistic, so I say it like it is. Ha! Yeah, that wouldn't be that wouldn't be great. And especially for adult women, someone says self-diagnosis is fine, but it usually involves a lot of research, not just one of those online quizzes, which are generally notorious for overestimating how likely someone is autistic. And then somebody said, well, I take that with a grain of salt, though OP says the friend took one online quiz and that she was a jerk in quotation marks. We have no idea what measurements this person took to get the diagnosis, and probably neither does OP. Are you necessarily going to tell your friends about the time you spent 5 hours online crying to YouTube videos and reading pages on the National Autistic Society and finally feeling seen? I don't know if that's necessarily something you'd want to share. Usually it's kind of a tentative, I think I might be autistic, and then people are like, you don't look autistic, and then you kind of maybe don't feel like you can say much more than that, you know? To be honest, all the jerk in quotation marks behavior by her friend is just common things said towards autistic people. She is blunt and rude, and even OP said she doesn't really get social cues. Yeah, like nothing that I've seen there suggests definitely not autistic. I am biased. I diagnosed myself as autistic. Well, I suspected that I was autistic, and I went and got assessed and it was confirmed. So I know that it worked out for me and it was positive, but maybe other people don't have that outcome. But the thing is, many people diagnose themselves, they go try and get a diagnosis and they get told they can't be autistic because they made eye contact and other things that are just incorrect. It's a topic I want to talk more about in the future, but I think the way that was approached was definitely arseholey. I'd love to know your thoughts. This one has the best title for me ever. Am I the arsehole for picking out the peas from my dinner in front of my mom's boss? I hate peas. They're like my enemy food. I've mentioned it so many times. Hello, I'm 20 and I live with my mom, 48, in the UK. Mom hosted a mini dinner for some colleagues. Her husband has a big house and a garden where we sat. I feel like I can picture this really clearly. I don't like dinners and eating with strangers, but I had to sit with them, which was a little bit stupid. Oh, it says here, edit at the top, I'm autistic and don't like peas because the texture makes me feel bad. It makes me feel bad. I feel you. Makes me feel bad. I'm dependent on my mom because I'm not able to live on my own yet, but I'm learning. I didn't realize that could change the context of the story until it was pointed out for me. Thank you for your insight so far. They made food I don't like. It had peas in it and I don't like peas. My mom knows this, but I wasn't allowed to eat other stuff because it would be making a fuss and there would be no time to make other things. I was not allowed to make something for myself either. Okay. She's 20 years old, like, but I think it was she wanted to, look a certain way in front of colleagues. I picked out the peas from my dinner to feed to the ducks at the pond close to my stepdad's house because I know ducks like peas. They shouldn't eat bread because that's bad for them. But the ducks around me ignore the peas and will only eat people's stinky bread. I don't know if they've been filled up on bread or what it is. They just turn their nose up. It's so irritating. But then I remember being on holiday once in Greece and there was some angry ducks, but they loved peas. So I don't know, take your peas to Greece, I suppose is the moral of the story. I put all the peas in a little cup with my spoon. So they sat there like dishing them into the cup. Okay. My mum's boss was sitting opposite me and asked me what I was doing, so I told him. He was silent for a while and then said okay. We didn't talk a lot, but sometimes he asked me a question and I answered. This is very neatly written. I don't know. At the end, he gave me some more peas that he had removed from his food. I asked if he also didn't like peas, and he said, I do like peas, but I also like ducks, so they can have my peas, which I think was nice of him. He also gave me £5 to buy an ice cream for myself, which was very nice of him. We didn't talk much, but I think he was a nice man and I liked him. But when he left, he talked to my mum and she came to me and she was angry or upset. She asked me if I spend all dinner picking out the peas and I said no. I also ate the pasta bits, but there was a lot of peas to pick out. Oh, I've been in that situation. How many of you have been in the situation of having to pick out something that you don't like and it just going on and on forever? And I remember when I used to eat fish when I was younger, just trying to pick out bones and stuff. Oh, it's terrible. You just can't get in the flow of enjoying your meal, trying to dodge all these bullets, She asked why I did that in front of everyone because that's very rude to do during a dinner. It shows you do not like the food and are not interested in the guest. This is exactly what I thought, so that's true. Oh, does he mean he does not like the food and is not interested in the guest? So this is the bluntness coming in. This is the Venice Beach bluntness. Mum says she understands that it's not nice, but if she says it's important like she did before dinner, then it really is important and I should keep that in mind. They were people who deserve respect and who felt put off by others touching their food strangely or not engaging with them. Mum's boss told her before he left that maybe next time I should eat something else because I didn't eat much. I'm not a big eater, so that's kind of normal for me, but he doesn't know that, of course. But the point is that he said something negative to her that could have been avoided if I didn't pick the peas out of my food. I didn't think about this, sorry, I can't read. I understand that that's not a good thing, but my mum was genuinely upset and I think it's a little bit much. It's just a dinner and he was a nice man. I don't think he's angry at her. I was just wondering if I'm seeing something important here that makes it an arsehole thing to do. Am I the arsehole? I wish I'd fed all of my unwanted peas throughout my life. There's probably a bucket full. Wish I'd fed them to the ducks. That's really nice. I would say not the arsehole. So I think I can kind of see where the mum is coming from. I kind of know what it's like when you're around people who you really want to impress and you want to make a good impression on them and you're worried about what other people would think, and then maybe sometimes you behave in a way that's normally she'd probably make her son a different meal or let him make a different meal and let him pick at it and not worry, you're not feeling judgment, and you don't want your child to be judged negatively either because you love your child. I don't know whether the boss has got experience with an autistic person perhaps in the past, but it sounds like he was very compassionate. I don't know whether he knew that the son was autistic beforehand or what. I do think it can be kind of embarrassing for people to say oh, he didn't eat much, maybe he should eat something else next time. Particularly coming from your boss, I can see how that would kind of be a bit upsetting because it's somebody criticizing your parenting. I don't know, you feel sensitive about it, you'd feel embarrassed. But maybe from the boss's point of view, he was thinking maybe he's been asked to sit and eat this meal in a way he normally wouldn't do for my sake, and I don't want that to happen again. I'm quite happy for him to just do whatever. I just feel like there are no assholes here, really. I don't think he meant anything malicious by it. I think he was just trying to eat the food in the best way that he could have done, and yeah, it probably would have been good for him to have been allowed to eat something else. I think she wanted to kind of have a more formal dinner, and it's nice that she wanted her son to be there and involved, I suppose, but maybe letting him have his own food next time or making a version that didn't have the peas in would be fine. These food sensitivities things, they often just don't change. I think sometimes parents can kind of hope that you're going to grow out of it, or you're an adult now, you should surely be able to eat peas for just one meal. I'm sure you can stomach it. You physically gag it can be near impossible to swallow certain things. And peas for me, like if somebody gave me a plate of peas and told me I had to eat them, it would take me hours. I swear it would take me hours. I would be chewing for ages, trying to find, you know, like when you got something awful in your mouth and you're trying to find the right moment to swallow it, and like it's just not nice. It's not pleasant. And there were many times where I'd go to friends' houses and they would have food and I'd have to eat a meal there, and you know, like sometimes they'd be really excited, like, oh, this is my favorite meal, I can't wait for you to have it with me, and things like that. It would be something that I just found completely inedible. I still won't eat peas unless they're like blended or like there's very few in the meal, and so I can like have a lot of other textures on the fork at the same time, but I still prefer them not to be there. It's just really stressful being at someone else's house and trying to not gag over someone else's food that they've really kindly prepared for you, that you really appreciate. You can't help these sensitivities that you have, and they're not going to go away. And I would often leave full plates of food, and I felt so embarrassed. As I got older in my late teens, I would really try and like shovel things down when people had made them for me, and it was hard. And I still would usually not finish things, I don't think. Being vegan has been great because like I can just say, oh, I'm vegan, I have to have something different. Like, you know, I get to kind of hide behind that. And it also got rid of a lot of the meat textures that I didn't like as well. It would often be like, you know, bacon sandwiches and stuff like that, which people love. Like, oh, it's an exciting breakfast, we're having bacon sandwiches. And you know, there's like little stringy bits and the fat bits, and the taste was like quite irony to me. And it just if someone wasn't making chicken nuggets and chips, or we weren't having a takeaway pizza, it was bad news. Gravy smothered on everything. And I just feel like maybe you should try and save your son that embarrassment. It sounded like she worked really hard to put this meal together and she didn't have time to make a separate meal, which I think is maybe fair. I mean, maybe there could have been a different meal that your son liked, but it sounds like he is quite picky and struggles with a lot of foods. Hopefully he's maybe getting some help with that if he's very underweight, and maybe seeing a dietitian or something who can try and help a little bit with that, because obviously you don't want to end up deficient in things. There's actually an update to the post, but let's read the comments first and then we'll read the little update. Not the asshole. I'm 33 and I hate peas. They literally make me gag. I pick them out of my food. Hell, my dad is in his 50 and picks his out too. Why are people still making these men peas? I suppose if you like peas. My husband is really sweet. He just sacrifices foods he actually likes to make things, because he's making for both of us, that we'll both eat, and sometimes he'll like add things on top. But I actually do get adventurous and I'll try things that have peppers in sometimes, and he'll say, I'm going to try this new meal, and I'll be like, oh, okay, I'll try it. If I don't like it, I'll just make myself something else. And you know what? Sometimes I end up actually liking it. He's definitely made me more adventurous, but he definitely also has kind of pandered to my food stuff. But we do eat healthfully now. I found a lot more foods that I can tolerate. I love tofu. I love the texture of it, which is great because it's so healthy and it's so much more consistent than meat ever was. I think it's sweet your mum's boss saved his peas for the ducks, and if he felt what he did was rude, he wouldn't have done the exact same thing. True. We have a rule of no thank you bite. If it's something you've never tried before, don't particularly like, you eat a small spoonful to honor the cook, or at least try something new. Peas are exempt from that rule. I made them just for me. I'm so glad to hear so many people hating on peas, because I feel like you don't hear it in regular life that much. I have seen it in comments. I've also seen people say they really like peas and that they love mashed potato, and mashed potato is like the devil. Mushy peas would be my worst nightmare. Do you have mushy peas if you're American? Not the also, but I just want to say I don't know why everybody hates peas. I love them. By the way, the best way to eat them out of a mug. Why? Out of a mug? What, like, obviously I won't fault you or anyone else for hating them, but does anyone else love peas, or am I the only one? I think a lot of people love peas. I think it's more the other way, to be honest. Or at least in England they do. Bloody peas with everything.
Now in with the munch too.
My mum gives me all her peas and green beans. I call them bonus green. I do that to my husband sometimes. And sometimes I don't want to waste the food. I'm like, oh, will you have it? Because I don't want to waste it. And he's like, no. So I'm like, oh no, I have to eat it because I hate food waste. Not the asshole. And as a fellow autistic, I absolutely love this. What's so amusing about it is that, as usual with neurotypical people, your mum was so busy worrying about social rules that she missed the important details. She thinks her boss was put off, but the details of your story say the exact opposite, that he liked you very much. I think she just felt probably embarrassed that she'd been kind of subtly told off, that she'd, you know, not put her son's need first when she'd been trying to put on this dinner. You can see why that would be kind of like upsetting and maybe make you a bit defensive. I'm sure she does love her son, and she was just, yeah, like this person says, she was just worried about following social rules, and it's for work as well, which adds an extra layer, you know. And there's an update. Thank you very much for your insight. I appreciate all of the comments and also the awards. I think it's very cool to receive. Some comments said to talk about it with my mom. I did, and it went very well. Yay! She said sorry and said it was not my fault. She was very stressed because she never hosted dinners. Yeah, I'd be very stressed if I had to host a dinner. She wanted her colleagues to like it. Yeah, they requested the recipe. She forgot I don't like peas because she was too busy with her colleagues. She wanted me to eat with them because at her colleague's house, his kids also ate with them. It sounded like he didn't super, want to be there. Didn't want to make a fuss about my autism because sometimes I'm rude when people ask about it. I don't know what he says that's deemed as rude when people ask about it. But yeah, it'd be nice if we get to a point where people can just be like, yeah, my son's autistic, and it not be like, a huge thing, and for people to have a little bit more understanding of what autism actually is. But I can understand being, again, kind of fearful of people's judgment, perhaps. I said to her that's why I could have made my own food. She said that was difficult because there was no time for that. Okay, I suppose if she was doing a lot in the kitchen, maybe there wasn't. I didn't realize because I'm not good with time when it's me neither. I'm appalling. I asked her to communicate with me next time and be more clear about what I can or can't do. She said she will and said I can help cook next time too. Almost every comment said that her boss was nice. He probably wasn't angry or upset with her. I told this to my mom. She said sorry to me again because she wasn't upset at me at all. She was embarrassed because she had tried to get me to behave normally and she shouldn't have done that. Oh, she also took it out on me on a whim. That's really nice. She sounds really lovely. I also said sorry because I didn't realize that it could have been important for her work status. I just thought they were like friends. Okay, yeah. She said it was okay because I didn't make a big fuss and I didn't get loud or walk away. She's proud of me for staying at the table and also thinking about the dogs. We concluded that we both learned things. I learned things because I know more about work dinners and manners. She learned things because she now knows to communicate and explain more to me to avoid stress. Yeah, I think sometimes you can't assume that people are just going to read between the lines. In the comments, people also said her boss might have experience with autistic people. I asked my mom and it was a little bit sad. His brother was autistic, but he died 10 years ago. It made him sad because he loved him a lot. He told her I should eat things I like next time because it upset him to think mum was worried about appearances so much that I had to be uncomfortable during dinner. He also said that dinner was really good and he's happy to have her on his team at work. Oh, he's a good person and a good boss. I sent him a thank you email with my mum. This is all just really nice. Are we on Reddit anymore? Like, why is this so nice? The last thing is that I fed the ducks the peas. I think they were happy about it. I just want to cry. Hopefully they're better than my ungrateful dogs. I got an ice cream with 2 scoops at the pond. I also got one for my mom because I had money left. It was a little bit melted when I came home because it was 5 minutes walking, but she still liked it and said I was amazing. Thank you for reading. I just feel like I've read a beautiful novel and it's finished and now I don't know what to do with myself. That was great. Some wonderful, healthy interactions and communication about misunderstandings. There's nothing more for me to say there. That was just wonderful. Well, this is very different from the previous Am I the Arseholes? If you'd like to see any of them, I have one where a mother decided to exclude just the one autistic boy from the class and invite everyone else to a party, and then the parents had become upset about that, and she didn't really seem to think that she'd done anything wrong. And I'm quite surprised by some of the comments on that video. Some people seem to be agreeing and kind of saying like, I don't think you can expect to be invited to a party, but I'm kind of like, if you just don't invite the one person, and he's autistic and her reasons for not inviting him were related to him being autistic, I think you can do it. You can choose to do that if you want. There's no law saying you have to invite someone, but I think people are gonna be upset by that, and if you're fine to have those be the consequences of your choice, then carry on and not invite people, I suppose. Let me know what you think anyway, and let me know whether you like peas or not. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. And subscribe if you want to subscribe. I forget to say that all the time, but you should probably subscribe if you want to, and if you don't want to, then you probably shouldn't. Bye.